Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. We're focusing on some recent reports, really trying to understand the seriousness of these allegations and, what the witness testimonies are actually revealing.
Yeah, it's a major case, and the details coming out are pretty intense.
Exactly, and we want to kind of cut through the noise, get to the core of what's being claimed.
Right, so we're mainly looking at a Sky News report here. It covers the sixth day of the trial pretty thoroughly, and it focuses quite a bit on two witnesses, Dawn Richard,
From Diddy Combs and Dirty Money, yeah.
that's her, and also Kerry Morgan, who is apparently a very close friend of Cassie Ventura for years.
Okay.
So the plan is to really pull out the key details from what they said, clarify the main claims, and think about what it all means for the trial going forward.
Okay, let's get into it then, starting with Dawn Richard. Her perspective is interesting because she was right there, involved in his music projects.
Definitely. Being part of Diddy Combs and Dirty Money puts her in that orbit. And according to this report, her testimony included some, well, very disturbing claims about Combs' behavior towards Cassie Ventura.
What specifically did she allege?
The report highlights her claim of frequent violence, and it wasn't vague. She mentioned specific alleged acts, things like punching, choking, slapping, kicking, even punching Cassie in the stomach. Really serious stuff.
Wow, okay. And wasn't there a specific incident she witnessed? Something with a skillet?
Yeah, she testified she saw Combs allegedly try to hit Cassie with an egg skillet. But maybe even more chilling, she claimed Combs threatened her, and another witness said they could, quote, go missing if they talked.
Go missing. That implies a serious threat, an attempt to silence people.
Absolutely. If that's true, it points towards alleged intimidation, trying to control the narrative, maybe instilling fear.
Makes you wonder if that fear kept things quiet for a long time.
It certainly raises that question.
Richard also mentioned alleged drug use.
She claimed Combs kept drugs in a Louis Vuitton pouch. Said she often saw him using ketamine, cocaine, Molly.
How does that fit in? Is the prosecution trying to link that to his alleged behavior?
Potentially. Allegations like that can sometimes be used to suggest erratic behavior or impaired judgment. It might be part of the larger picture they're trying to paint.
Okay, but then came the cross-examination. The defense pushed back, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's their job. They suggested her story had changed over time.
How did she respond to that?
She denied it. Said she was doing her best to remember traumatic events from years ago, which, is understandable.
But the defense also brought up that she contacted Diddy after she stopped working with him and asked to come back.
Yes, they did. That's a key point for the defense, definitely. They're trying to show actions that might seem inconsistent with someone who is supposedly afraid or completely alienated.
Why is showing inconsistency so important for the defense?
It's all about credibility. If they can make the jury doubt the witness's memory or truthfulness on some points, they hope it casts doubt on the entire testimony. Her wanting to return adds complexity.
And they also suggested she might just be angry, because her career didn't take off after Diddy Combs and Dirty Money ended, and maybe she blames Combs.
Right. They put that to her, directly suggesting anger over her career setbacks.
And her answer?
According to the report, she just said yes.
Just yes.
Yes.
That's interesting. Leaves it hanging a bit.
It does. She acknowledges the feeling about her career. But, does that automatically mean her testimony about the alleged abuse is false? That's what the court has to figure out. It's one piece of the puzzle.
Okay, let's pivot to the other key witness mentioned, Kerry Morgan. Cassie's friend for, over 17 years?
Yeah, a longtime friend. Met when they were young models, so her perspective is quite different, more personal, perhaps.
And how does she describe Combs?
She described him as having mood swings and being very aggressive. That general description, coming from a close friend of Cassie's, could be quite powerful.
It sets a certain tone. Did she describe specific incidents too?
She did. Very specific and disturbing ones. She talked about hearing Cassie's screams, described them as guttural, terrifying.
Guttural, terrifying.
And then allegedly seeing Combs dragging Cassie by her hair out of the master bedroom.
That's a very vivid, awful image. Those kinds of details must have an impact in court.
Oh, definitely. That kind of visceral description, the sounds, the alleged action, it paints a really stark picture for the jury.
And there was more, right? Something about choking and a hanger.
Yes. She testified about another alleged time where Combs choked Cassie, supposedly leaving finger marks on her throat, and then allegedly threw a wooden hanger at her head, hard enough to cause a concussion.
A concussion from a hanger.
That's what she claimed. And she said witnessing one of these assaults made her physically ill. dizzy, vomiting.
She actually got sick from seeing it.
Apparently so. She said she went to urgent care afterwards, even talked to a lawyer about suing, though she didn't actually file a lawsuit back then.
That physical reaction,
Mm.
it adds weight to her claim about how severe it was, doesn't it?
It could be seen that way, yes. Her seeking medical help and legal advice, even if she didn't sue immediately, suggests it affected her deeply.
But she did get a settlement later. Something like $30,000.
That's right. The report says she received a $30,000 settlement from Combs over that alleged assault. And interestingly, she said Cassie actually arranged it.
Cassie arranged the settlement for her friend who Combs allegedly assaulted.
That's
Look
quite
at it.
very.
Yeah.
And Morgan said their friendship ended over it. She felt Cassie didn't support her enough after the incident. Her quote was, "I draw my line at physical abuse." That says a lot about her stance.
It really does. So the settlement happens, but the friendship breaks down because of the perceived lack of support around the alleged abuse itself.
Exactly. It highlights the emotional fallout and how seriously Morgan viewed what she says she witnessed.
Did Morgan offer any insight into why Cassie might have stayed with Combs despite these alleged incidents?
She did. She testified that Cassie felt dependent on him for her job, her car, her apartment, basically her whole setup.
So a significant power imbalance there. Financial, professional dependency.
That's what it suggests. If someone believes their housing, income, and career are all controlled by their partner, leaving becomes incredibly difficult regardless of alleged abuse. It traps people.
Now, during Morgan's testimony, some details from Cassie's own cross-examination came up. Something about jealousy.
Yeah, it seems the defense brought up Cassie allegedly being jealous of Combs's ex, Kim Porter, and also that Combs was allegedly jealous of the actor Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan. When was this?
Apparently, Cassie had a brief relationship, or at least was seeing him, back in 2015. Morgan confirmed Cassie was talking to him, hanging out, and that Combs was jealous.
So the defense is trying to paint a picture of maybe mutual jealousy and relationship drama.
Seems like it. Introduce other dynamics, suggest it wasn't just about alleged abuse, but involved more complex emotions.
But does jealousy excuse alleged violence?
Legally, no. Relationship complexities don't negate allegations of assault or control. They're separate issues, but the defense might hope it muddies the waters for the jury.
Okay, and there was one more testimony briefly mentioned. David James, a former personal assistant.
Right. Just a brief mention in this report, but potentially corroborating. He talked about the intense work hours at Bad Boy Records, but more relevant here, he apparently testified that Cassie told him she couldn't leave Combs' quote, crazy world.
Why? What reason did she give him?
According to James, she said Combs controls my career, pays my allowance, and pays my rent.
That sounds almost exactly like what Kerry Morgan said about her dependents.
It does. Hearing similar accounts of alleged control over finances and career from two different people, a close friend and a former employee, could strengthen the prosecution's argument about a pattern of control.
Okay, let's just quickly recap the broader context here for listeners. Sean Combs, 55 years old.
Facing very serious federal charges, racketeering conspiracy.
Which often involves like a pattern of criminal activity, right?
Generally, yes. An agreement to participate in an enterprise through a pattern of illegal acts. Plus, 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and 2 counts of transportation for prostitution.
And he denies everything.
Vehemently denies all allegations. He's been held without bail since September.
And if convicted, the potential sentence is significant.
Very, at least 15 years, possibly up to life in prison.
And this is happening against the backdrop of his huge career, founding Bad Boy Records, launching massive stars.
Right. Mary J. Blige, Notorious B.I.G., Usher, the list goes on. He was a powerhouse.
The trial's in Manhattan federal court. And you mentioned, or the report mentioned, other celebrities possibly being present during one alleged incident.
Yeah, the report named Usher, Big Daddy Kane, Jimmy Iovine, and Neo as allegedly being present during one incident Don Richard described.
Wow, that adds another dimension. If other well-known people were potentially witnesses.
It raises questions, certainly, about who knew what or saw what within that wider circle.
Okay, so summing up this deep dive, based on the Sky News report, we've heard detailed, disturbing allegations from Don Richard and Kerry Morgan. They paint a picture of alleged repeated violence, physical assaults, choking, threats.
And significant control exerted by Combs over Cassie Ventura. Control over her finances, her career, creating a sense of dependency.
What stood out most to you from these accounts?
I think the specificity, the alleged egg skillet, dragging by the hair, the finger marks, the concussion from a hanger, those details are stark. Also, the consistency between Morgan and James about the reasons Cassie allegedly felt trapped, and Kerry Morgan's own physical reaction, feeling sick after witnessing an alleged assault, that felt very raw.
Yeah, those details are hard to ignore, but, and it's crucial, we keep saying this, these are allegations presented in court. Sean Combs denies them. This is an ongoing trial.
Exactly. We're looking at specific testimonies reported by one source. The legal process has a long way to go.
It really makes you think, though. Considering these claims about power dynamics, especially in a place like the entertainment industry.
And the courage it must take for anyone to come forward with allegations like these against such a powerful figure.
Right. So the question for you listening is maybe, what broader issues does this raise for you about relationships, about power, and about the systems, maybe in entertainment or elsewhere, that might allow situations like this to develop or continue?